Bonjour tout le monde, c'est moi Charlotte et aujourd'hui nous allons parler des participes passés irréguliers en français. Et cette liste c'est pour les verbes, quelques verbes qui utilisent ou qui prennent le verbe avoir comme auxiliaire. Okay, let's have a look. We've got a list of 20 verbs that I've chosen which have irregular past participles. So it's the past participles that we're looking at. They don't follow the usual pattern for regular verbs and they're all used with the verb avoir. Okay, so let's have a look at those. So members of the language club, you will shortly receive an email with a document that looks a little bit like this. And that has most of the information, in fact more of the information that we're going to talk about in this video, as well as some examples and exercises and translations you can do, and links to this video and online exercises that you can practice your comprehension with. So let's get going. What have we got? So let's start off with how you change a verb, a regular verb, into its past participle. So the way that that's done normally with verbs that take avoir is, say you have the verb manger. Everyone should be familiar with that. It means to eat. It's an ER verb. So in order to say I have eaten or I ate, we would use the verb avoir, which was the auxiliary verb. So that's the first part, which looks like this. So that bit there, et, comes after the subject pronoun je, so that becomes J apostrophe A, j'ai, I have. That's the auxiliary part. And then you add the past participle of the main verb. So manger, you take off the ER ending and you add an E accent aigu, comme ça. So j'ai mangé, j'ai plus manger. Let's get rid of that little bit in the middle, and that means I have eaten or I ate. Okay, so the avoir is the first part, and then the main verb with the past participle ending, that past participle after the auxiliary verb forms a compound tense. So you'll also have, so that's for ER verbs that are regular. And remember, it's not just in the past tense like the passé composé that you'll use past participle. You'll also have it in other compound tenses like j'aurais mangé, or I will have or I would have eaten, for example. Okay, so the past participle will come after the verb avoir in a compound tense. So that's for certain verbs. So that's what a normal verb, how a normal ER verb changes. And remember, we're looking at irregular ones in this video. So what happens to IR verbs? So for example, dormir. If I want to say I have slept or I slept, okay, there's two ways of saying it in English. We take an IR verb like dormir, get rid of the ending, you can just rub it out. That leaves us with the stem of the verb, or the root, dorme. So the IR ending of the infinitive changes to just an I, dormi. So that's the past participle of the verb dormir. So to say I have slept, you use subject pronoun, avoir, which conjugates with the subject in agreement with the subject pronoun. J'ai, I have, dormi. As-tu bien dormi? Oui, j'ai dormi très bien, merci. Okay, have you slept well? Yeah, I slept well, thanks. So that's an IR verb. So ER endings of regular verbs changes to E accent, okay, which sounds more or less the same. Manger, manger. Dormir becomes dormi. And then verbs that end with RE, when they're regular, like this verb vendre, which means to sell, the RE ending changes to AU. Okay? That's the infinitive verb, that's the past participle. So if I want to say I sold my house, I have sold. So you use avoir, j'ai, excusez-moi, j'ai oublié le verbe en fait. J'ai oublié, that's an ER verb. J'ai vendu ma maison, la maison, si tu veux. So our ER verb goes to E accent, IR verbs goes to an I, and our E verbs, if they're regular, goes to a U. However, we're looking at irregular verbs. So let's have a look at the ones that I have. Il y en a 20 verbes, donc, ou 20 participes passés irréguliers, donc moi je vais les écrire, les prononcer, et je vais vous donner leur version à l'infinitif, avec leur traduction, ou leurs traductions en anglais. So let's have a look. We'll start off with this one. Appris. Appris. Let's go in a little bit. So that's j'ai appris quelque chose aujourd'hui. J'ai appris. Ou je n'ai rien appris. Je n'ai rien appris aujourd'hui à l'école. Appris is from the verb apprendre, which means to learn. Hence this means learned or learnt. I have learned. This is from the verb that, let me show you if I can find it, apprendre. Got a little list here, or I've got my little pile of the verbs. If I can find, voilà. Là, c'est apprendre, comme ça. Apprendre. So it looks like the verb prendre, to take. In fact, I'll mention that now because the ending pris is the past participle of prendre, and here we have a verb that looks very similar. Prendre becomes appris. So that bit there means learned. Okay? Now let's see what's next. Eu. J'ai eu. Very irregular. So EU. J'ai eu. Eu. J'ai eu. J'ai eu. Qu'est-ce que j'ai eu? J'ai eu un café. I had a coffee. So that comes from the verb avoir. Avoir meaning to have. So when you use I have had, you're just like in English, you're saying j'ai, I have, and then the past participle of to have. J'ai eu. So, for example, you can see that apprendre, to learn, is an RE verb. So if this were regular, if this was a regular past participle, it would have, you'd take off the ending and you'd add a U. Apprendu. Mais ce n'est pas du tout ça, tu vois? Et c'est pour ça que c'est irrégulier. So that's why it's irregular. It looks nothing like you might imagine. So eu comes from avoir. That's an IR verb, if you like. You look at it and you think it ends IR. Maybe it would look like this. Mais non. Ça n'existe pas. Okay, so that is how they're irregular. So they might look completely different to the stem. Right? That looks completely different to the stem of that verb. Nothing to do with it. It might have a different ending than you expect. It might have an I instead of a U, or a U instead of an I, that kind of thing. Or it just might be something completely unfamiliar, okay? So they're the kind of things we're looking for. Appris, eu, ah oui. Je peux dire, par exemple, j'ai bu un café. J'ai eu un café, mais j'ai bu un café. I drank, okay? Bu, B-U, U. And that comes from the verb boire. So that's an RE ending, but it also has an I, right? And it sounds like it might just end like that. The past participle is bu. Qu'est-ce que tu as bu hier soir? J'ai bu du vin. Drank some wine. There's a few that are short like this, just 2 letters, and that have that U sound. U, bu. You'll recognise the others. Okay, this one is découvert. 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 You can probably see what it means. It means to discover. So in the past participle it would be discovered. For example, j'ai découvert quelque chose. I have discovered something. Découvert, and it's from the verb découvrir. Now, to discover. Couvrir is to cover. Découvrir is to discover or to uncover, if you like. So it's an IR verb, but well, it's got this ver ending, which is this ERT thing. You're going to see it in offert and suffert, for like to offer or to suffer. They're verbs that have this irregular ERT ending, okay? J'ai découvert, j'ai bu, j'ai eu, j'ai appris. Let's have a look at the rest of them. Okay. Obtenu. That looks a bit like the English to obtain. So obtained. Remember, these are past participles. These go after the auxiliary verb avoir. So it could be, for example, nous avons découvert quelque chose. Il a bu un café. Qu'est-ce que tu as appris, for example. Obtenu comes from the verb obtenir. To obtain or to get something. So it's an IR verb. You might think, if you knew the verb, that it would end in an I, but in fact it's a U. So it's not obtenu, it's obtenu. And I put a little asterisk by that because it's similar to the verb tenir, which means to hold or to keep, depending on the context. Okay, let's have a look. Here are the ones that I mentioned earlier, a bit like these. Par exemple, j'ai lu un livre. I have read, or I read. That's from the verb lire. Okay. Next one. Next two-letter past participle. J'ai pu. J'ai pu. Okay, it's not anything vulgar. J'ai pu faire quelque chose. So pu is from the verb pouvoir. This is a modal verb. This is a very helpful verb. So there's another modal verb. There's two. Actually, there's only two on my list, but there's three irregular past participle endings for devoir, pouvoir, and vouloir. So they're your modal verbs. J'ai pu faire quelque chose. I was able. I managed to. I succeeded. I was able to do something. Ah oui. So I mentioned this one. Pris. J'ai pris le bus. Qui a pris mon portable? Ah, je l'ai pris moi. Excusez-moi, c'est moi qui l'ai pris. Who took my phone? Oh, I'm sorry, it was me. J'ai pris quelque chose. J'ai pris ton stylo, par exemple. Pris, from the verb prendre. And remember, apprendre with an AP in front of it is to learn, and appris is learned. Okay, this next one's so important and very common. J'ai dit. Qu'est-ce que tu as dit? Qu'est-ce que tu as dit? Je n'ai rien dit. J'ai dit blah blah blah. So dit is from dire. Elle a dit, j'ai dit, je lui ai dit, je t'ai dit. So the verb dire is to say or to tell something to someone, or to say something to someone. So you'll often see this in the past tense with this. Je lui ai dit. Sorry, that's written kind of funny, but if you imagine that's a sentence. Je lui ai dit, I don't know, de faire quelque chose. I told him or her. So this lui thing means to him or to her. It's an indirect object pronoun. So il m'a dit. He told to me. He said to me to do something. So with the verb dire, because it's followed by a preposition, a. The past participle is often used with indirect object pronouns. I said to him, I said to her, they said to us, we said to them. Okay, so go back and see my indirect object pronoun video if you're not quite sure what I mean. It'll be useful. Okay, so let's have a look what we got so far. J'ai appris, j'ai eu, j'ai pu, j'ai découvert, j'ai obtenu, j'ai lu, j'ai pu, j'ai pris, j'ai dit. Ok. Ok. On a alors du. This is a useful one. This is a modal verb devoir. It means to have to do something. Bon, par exemple, let's have a look at my example in this. As-tu dû prendre le train? Did you have to take the train? En fait, j'ai raté le train, donc j'ai dû prendre le taxi. Prendre un taxi. J'ai dû faire mon travail. J'ai dû refaire mes devoirs. J'ai dû réparer mes lunettes. I have had to, if you like. Okay, so that's the verb devoir. Let's hope I've got some space on the next page. Il y a pas mal de participes passés irréguliers sur ma liste, non? Donc, on a fait la moitié, donc ça va. Okay, the next one is me. J'ai mis. Par exemple, j'ai mis les stylos sur la table. Me from the verb mettre. Okay? Me. This one you'll know. Compris. J'ai compris ou je n'ai pas compris. From the verb comprendre. So 2 RE verbs here. You might expect, if you remember the regular past participle endings, the endings for regular verbs, you might think this is metu or comprendu, mais non. So mis and compris. Ah, okay. Conduit. That's from the verb conduire, to drive. So, j'ai conduit à l'école. J'ai conduit chez mes parents, par exemple. Okay, this one might look familiar. Été. From the verb être. So, I have been, if you like. Sometimes translated into English as I was. Think of it as I have been, because it's from the verb to be. Être. Par exemple, j'ai été malade plusieurs fois hier. J'ai été malade. I have been. I was. Okay, I have been. If you look at that word on its own, if you just saw it floating on a page, you might also think that it's the noun l'été, so L'E-T-E, which means the summer. Rien à voir. Donc là, avec par exemple l'auxiliaire comme ça, j'ai été malade, ça veut dire que ça c'est le participe passé, mais c'est irrégulier. Okay, what else have we got? Ah oui. Super common, this one. Fait, from the verb faire, which means to do or to make. So j'ai fait mes devoirs. I did my homework. J'ai fait un gâteau de Noël, si tu veux. Ok. Prochain. Écrit. Par exemple, j'ai écrit ça. I have written, I wrote. Écrit from the verb écrire. Okay. This one, plus. Plus. Par exemple, il a plu hier. Hier, il a plu. Cette nuit, il a plu beaucoup. Oui, je le sais. Je sais qu'il a plu parce que, where is it? In my example, look. Je sais qu'il a plu parce que, something along the lines of, j'ai regardé la pluie à partir de ma fenêtre. Something like that. So there's an example there. I know it has rained because I watched it rain. I watched the rain from my window. So plu comes from pleuvoir. Very irregular, right? And it means to rain. So this can easily be mixed up with the verb pleurer. which is very similar and has a kind of watery meaning. Pleurer is to cry, and pleuvoir is to rain. So il a plu is rain. Okay? Worth mentioning here, that plu past participle also can be used for the verb plaire, okay, which means to please, or se plaire, to be pleasing to someone. So don't worry if you see that in a different context and it doesn't mean rain. It might be to do with something being pleasing to someone or liking something. Okay, vu. I think you'll all recognise this from the verb voir, which means to see, and from the term déjà vu, something you've already seen. Okay, so that's already in the past participle in that phrase. J'ai vu le film Le Boulet et c'est très marrant, par exemple. Okay, let's have a look. This one is also ends with a U, reçu, with a cedilla on the C, and that's from the verb recevoir. Okay, recevoir is to receive. Okay, par exemple, j'ai reçu ton message. Merci beaucoup, j'ai reçu ton message et j'ai lu ton message, ou j'ai vu ton message, j'ai vu le message que tu as écrit, et j'ai compris le message que tu as écrit, par exemple. Okay? What's the last one? Okay, last one here is, I mentioned this when I mentioned découvert, which is the past participle of découvrir. This is an IR verb, offrir, to offer, or to, to offer something to someone. So when you offer to buy someone a drink, for example, you might use this. Je lui ai offert quelque chose à boire. So that's another one. When you offer something to someone, you'll use it with an indirect object pronoun because you're offering it to you, to him, to her. So when I mentioned je lui ai dit quelque chose, that lui means to him or to her, and that's an indirect object pronoun. So that's another one of those ones that is worth knowing. Right, what we're going to do now is I'm going to look through this little pile, which was in order of past participles versus infinitive verbs. So what I'll do is I'll just go through them now and I'll see if hopefully they're separate. Right, so they're already mixed up, that's fine. So if you're in the club and you've got the handout, it's probably a good thing that these are mixed up anyway. So I think here I should have all my past participles. I'm going to hold them up, see if you can tell me what the infinitive verb is, okay? So let's take that out of sight. Okay. J'ai offert. J'ai offert. Offert from the verb offrir, to offer. J'ai conduit from the verb conduire, to drive. J'ai dû, with a little circumflex over the EU, sorry if it's a bit hazy. I had to, I have had to. From the verb devoir. Hier, il a plu. From the verb pleuvoir, to rain. J'ai écrit un message. From the verb écrire, wrote or written. J'ai obtenu ton adresse email. From the verb obtenir, to obtain or to get. Reçu, from the verb recevoir, that means received. Un reçu as a noun is also a receipt. Okay? Un reçu. J'ai reçu ton reçu. Ah, this one's a bit tough. J'ai eu. J'ai eu. From the verb avoir, to have. I have had. J'ai mis. J'ai mis. From the verb mettre, So mettre is to put something on the table. J'ai mis mon portable sur le fauteuil. J'ai dit quelque chose. Qu'est-ce que tu as dit? What did you say? So dit comes from dire, which means to say, and dit is said. J'ai été malade hier. Oh, j'ai été malade. J'ai été, from être. I have been, from the verb to be. That's the first one we saw. J'espère que vous avez appris quelque chose. I hope that you have learned something. So that's from the verb apprendre, to learn. J'espère que vous ayez compris. I hope that you have understood. From comprendre. This is from découvrir, which is to discover. J'ai découvert. And this one is from faire. J'ai fait mon travail. J'ai lu ton message, from lire. J'ai bu trop d'alcool, from boire, to drink. Je t'ai vu hier, saw you yesterday. J'ai vu, from voir, to see. And here we have pu. Je n'ai pas pu faire mes devoirs. I haven't been able to do something. To be able. Pu. Okay, excellent. And I think I'll just go very quickly through this pile of infinitives and see if you can remember their past participles, and then I'll send this email to you. So, apprendre becomes appris. J'ai appris. I have learnt. Avoir becomes eu. J'ai eu. I have had. Pouvoir becomes pu. J'ai pu. I have been able to. Mettre becomes mis. J'ai mis quelque chose sur la table. To put. Conduire becomes conduit. J'ai conduit. I drove. Lire becomes lu. I read. Obtenir becomes obtenu. J'ai obtenu quelque chose. I obtained. I got something. Boire becomes bu. I drank. Dire becomes dit. D-I-T. I said. I told. Devoir becomes du with a circumflex over the U. Pleuvoir. Il a plu cette nuit. It rained. Plu, P-L-U. P-L-U. Voir becomes vu. Sorry if these are like, if I've doubled up on them. Faire, to do, becomes fait. J'ai fait mes devoirs. Être becomes été. J'ai été malade. Écrire becomes écrit. Offrir becomes offert. Recevoir becomes reçu. Découvrir becomes découvert. Prendre becomes pris. And comprendre becomes compris. So I hope that helps. Okay, I'm going to send this out now. If anyone has any comments, please leave them below, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. If you're in my club, you can get back to me with the homework that you've completed if you like. You can subscribe to my video, my channel here, and like my video underneath if you found that this is useful. Alors, je vous laisse. Merci beaucoup et à la prochaine fois. Au revoir.